Hello everybody, happy Saturday, welcome to my channel. I hope everybody's having a great weekend. It is cold, fall is finally here, but nevertheless, today we'll talk about Belarus and the whole geopolitical situation with Russia and certain portions of it. So first of all, this week is the first time pro-Russian party has been registered in Belarus. Of course, it does not come as a surprise given the fact that Lukashenko asked Putin for help pertaining to the situation that started escalating after the last election in August. Unfortunately, the election was not legitimate. It is clear the results were falsified, regardless of which side. I do not think Tikhanovsky secured that many votes. However, I do not believe Lukashenko had close to 80% approval rate. It's almost impossible, and again, that was discussed many times, so I'm not going to discuss that topic again. But nevertheless, what does it mean having pro-Russian party? Pro-Russian party means it's someone that would support Belarus and the Russian Union. Nevertheless, it is almost pretty much a given the fact that Lukashenko went to Putin that there is going to be more pro-Russian activity. Even though Belarus has been always friendly to Russia, Lukashenko tried to sell himself to the highest bidder to a degree. Because he was really promoting Belarus to the West and coming there for vacation, work, etc. in 2018 especially, I believe. But since 1991, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, since Lukashenko came to power close to 94, it is been that there's no official pro-Russian parties were allowed in Belarus. There were parties in Belarus, but again, Belarus decided to stay more on the level of Soviet Union as communism, except obviously with freedom of travel and a few more freedoms. However, they got a lot of guaranteed. So during wild 90s, where everybody was in disarray in other republics, well, former Soviet Union republics, now independent nations, Belarus had somewhat of a stable factory incomes, etc., versus everyone else had to go through a very tumultuous times, including a lot of people were starving, and it was horrible. Crime rates were up, mafia was pretty much, the murders were happening daily, Wild West, gangs, everything, you name it. So now this is a big step. However, Putin is not exactly happy with Lukashenko because one of the discussions that happened, and this is what was released, of course, because the closed door discussions, not everything is released. He promised Putin that he'll work more closely with opposition. And even though Lukashenko did meet with opposition leaders and it was on the news and he released some of them, at the end of the day, there's still severe issues within opposition. But what I'm actually concerned about, and this is two parts, I'll get to Belarus specifically, and then I'll go into geopolitical analysis of opposition parties in the former Soviet bloc to begin with, and Russia, of course. So what happened now, Tikhanovskaya, she's been a vocal leader of the opposition. She moved to Lithuania because she said it was not safe for her to stay in Belarus. She's been speaking to UN and many other big Western entities, and now she's been awarded the Sakharov Prize. And I honestly believe this is an insult. And the Sakharov Prize is for the human rights. And not her exactly, but the Belarusian opposition was awarded that prize. What I think it is an insult, because there's so many people who fight true human rights disasters. And what I'll say, even though it shows that Tikhanovskaya's husband obviously been imprisoned and all that, she has not ever experienced adversity in her life. And this is what really bothers me about this awards. Now it's not based how much you've done, but it is political. So now you could just rename all these prizes as political favoritism. That's all I have to say. Because, for example, Iran, there's horrible conditions that happen in Iran. People get killed there. And not talking about opposition being beaten in Belarus, of course that's wrong too, but I'm talking about severe situations, China, where people are in prison, family members, if you go against the government. Those people you don't hear about. Look at Iran. One of the actual athletes was executed last month in Iran based on his political views, not even anything. That's the type of people and families should be getting prize for human rights. People who are working in Syria and helping people and helping human rights because there's deplorable conditions there, refugee camps, saving animals in war zones. There's so many places, Afghanistan, and yet the human rights prize goes to Belarusian opposition. And let's face it, and this is what I always find very interesting, they're all sellouts. In those former places, 100% sellouts. And this is what always got me very interested yet, and it's a very interesting trajectory and parallel. For example, let's take Donald Trump. I don't discuss American politics a lot, but let's take Donald Trump as an example. Donald Trump has been a huge Democrat supporter. His views, his pageant. I won't even get into that. He was one of the biggest donors to Clinton Foundation at one point in time. And suddenly, out of the blue, this man becomes super conservative. Please give me a break on that. And of course, like I said, I would not like to discuss American politics to that level in this video or any other videos because I try to be very mild when it comes to US politics in general. But nevertheless, as much as, like, for example, and take Biden, he always stuck to the Democratic Party. I'm not saying Biden is a 100% honest person. Politics, especially how long he's been in politics or anyone in politics, it's quite challenging game, and I'll put it mildly. But nevertheless, but people and the opposition, and that's why there's a big resist movement in US and resistant hashtags constantly, trending on Twitter and other platforms. But yet the same opposition that does not like Trump, does not like Putin because, they are somewhat, dictatorship type of styles. Obviously, I'm not comparing Trump and Putin, but nevertheless. But what I'm trying to say is they are condemning Putin and all that, yet they embrace Tikhanovsky and Navalny and everybody else. Well, how can you embrace people who are technically speaking are traitors? And I'm not talking about traitors to the Putin's government. I'm not talking about traitors to Lukashenko. They have not ever accomplished anything on their own. First of all, Tikhanovsky and her family, they all, and this is what part of the whole communist model is, they all got a salary. Or if she worked, it didn't work, for example, but I'm saying in general. In Belarus, they all got a salary from the government. They had a full communist flair going on where it doesn't matter how productive you are, it doesn't matter how good you are, you still get the same set amount. You get free housing, all you have to pay is utilities, and yet there's the ones who want change, but yet their change, and this is where it gets very interesting, the Western countries look at them and they want change and changes politically. No, this is where it gets interesting. They want, in their minds, they want the West to pay for them like Ukraine did. But yet they'll still do nothing except those funds will be stolen. Now, Tikhanovsky and her cohorts will get Western funds and suddenly, because now she's supported by the West, she doesn't have anything in her own that she's doing. All of that, and yet they think this is a new political movement. Somebody give us money, because they don't work hard for their money. If you're saying she's working hard, okay, maybe this is the first time being in opposition leader she actually worked. How long? 3 months? 4 months? And she's how old? And the same goes for Navalny. What did Navalny suffer adversity? Yes, poisoning is wrong, horrible. But his father was high up in Ministry of Defense in Russia. He has an apartment valued, well, right now, seized and everything, but his kids go to Ivy League schools in US. He got private jet. He's everything paid for. And yes, poisoning is horrible, and I'm not saying anything, but what is it exactly that he is done for anywhere? What opposition exactly? He's anti-corruption fighter, yet he actually owns stocks in a lot of those companies that he's saying that are corrupt. And this is actually a proven fact. His camp was trying to explain that by stating that he's buying those shares in order to try to influence different decisions within those companies. But let's face it, he knows it and everybody else knows it. He does not have control package of shares. So when he buys those Russian shares, it's purely for profit and self-gain. So again, where's the opposition here? And this is what really bothers me, especially when price goes. I feel like true people are robbed. Women in Pakistan who are fighting, who are almost losing lives. Afghani women standing up because of the regimes. Iran. There's so many places where true activists risking their life, their family lives, to try to save people and make changes to make it positive because the regime is so horrid. What was so horrid in Belarus? Yes, I'm not excusing the fact that Lukashenko should not be lifetime president. Yes, he did jail his opposition, wrong. But for the people that are getting guaranteed income and everything else, yes, you're allowed to have change. But it's not adversity what other people are suffering. And when you give out such price, it means that you think these people did something amazing. No, they have not. I think there's more people, animal activists, that are saving street animals in war zones deserve more credit. And people, obviously it's not human rights umbrella, but people who are saving children in war-torn zones, teaching in those camps, saving them every day. Those are the people that should be getting human rights awards, not political Tikhanovska's team. And also, all those people are doing it all from, outside of that nation too. The people who are like in Iran, who are fighting within, risking their lives. That's a big deal. What is Tikhanovska? Tikhanovska is sitting in Lithuania, giving money from the West. What is she exactly feeling per se? or what her opposition, even like take Nexta, it became very influential in opposition. And guess what? I think Nexta is great for Poland. Poland made a very wise strategic move by empowering it, growing it, because it serves Polish interests. But at the end of the day, those people weren't even in Belarus. They weren't exiled. They chose to go. So, and this is what I'm saying, and I applaud Poland for wanting to have more skin in the game and more appetite, but then that's how it is. But this is opposition. And this is what I was saying again, and I will say it again. Why is the same Western coalitions embrace people like Tikhanovskaya, yet at the same time she's no different, and Navalny is no different than, for example, Donald Trump would be in a different level, because again, they switch sides when it's convenient for them. As long as Navalny making money from the West, now he'll be supporting the West. As long as he found some funding in Russia, he'll be in Russia. You cannot ever trust those people. All he wants is money and power, but he's not ever going to be in power of Russia. He's not that opposition leader. Let me face it. And if the West wants to actually hedge bets on somebody, it would not be him. It should be somebody in their early 30s, up-and-comer, who's very popular and in sync with different age groups, hipsters, even millennials that there are in Moscow, with different viewpoints. And there's a lot of influencers, YouTube Russian influencers, who actually have respect of masses, draw attention to themselves. They have right charisma. Not this guy. Come on, he's just basically getting funds. But anyways, but then again, they also add some other individuals too. For example, there was a big murder, well, there's many murders that happened in Moscow and politically motivated, including Nemtsov, Ella Pamfilo is okay, but there's Starovoidova, there's quite a lot of people. But at the same time, what is very interesting about that is that her supporters in the 90s, like for example Limonov, he's right now actually one of the government elected officials in Moscow, who is actually all for change, but then conveniently switch sides. And that's many of that happening. But nevertheless, could you trust people like that? And he was starting with her. She lost her life fighting opposition. He was her supporter, then he switched sides. Where is there, and I'm not saying anything, it's people's choice, and a free country should have a choice, but you can never trust people who suddenly switch. It's one thing if one was voting Republican and now they switched to voting Democrat, but it's another thing when you support one cause for a long period of time, and then suddenly you switch, and there's no rhyme or reason because personal narcissism, that is where it goes wrong. Navalny is a narcissist. Everybody knows that in Russia he's a narcissist. His YouTube videos, he was a narcissist. You can see all of that. There's nothing decent about that person. And this is what I'm trying to say, and same now in Belarus. Tikhanovskaya giving ultimatum for Lukashenko to leave power. Well, she's not going to stand up to Putin. Putin is not going to allow her to do that. She's nobody to Putin. Never has, never will be. She's not. She's just another hire. And this is the whole thing. And this is what people in the West don't understand with the whole thing. Yes, it's very convenient and it's great because I totally understand from geopolitical intelligence perspective you have to have certain power plays, and because for example Ukraine is bordering Russia, it's a power play, it's a buffer zone, you want to have that strength and you want to add that. Same goes for Belarus, you want to have that control, but nevertheless the hedging bets on the wrong people because nothing really happens. And this is the sad part, how Ukraine lost Crimea too. And I'm not saying anything as far as I'm not blaming Ukrainian people, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is hedging bets on these leaders are pretty much for sale, and they're not for the right sale. Once you bought them, you don't buy their loyalty, you buy temporary like, and as long as the next bidder comes along, they run and take it. So this is what the truth is. Anyways, please click like, please subscribe to my channel, please let me know what you think. I always love to hear people's opinions. I also would like to know what you think about the situation in Belarus. And you can also read my articles under Kristina Kitova at communalnews.com. I hope everybody has great the rest of their weekend. Thanks again.